Welcome back to The Ordinary. Today, we have a very special guest, our older sister, Shailja, who's here to share her extraordinary journey over the past year.
From tying the knot to moving to Florida, she's been navigating some pretty big changes. We're excited to dive into her story and see how she's embraced this new chapter in life.
So before we start off, welcome to our podcast. We kind of wanted to have our sister on the podcast. We love talking to her. She's very smart.
Great talker.
Great talker. And, she's gone through a lot of changes in her life. So before we get into that, let's take an opportunity to get to know her. I mean, we know her, but we would love for you guys to get to know her. So Didi, why don't you introduce yourself?
Well, I am 29 years old. I am a teacher by profession, and I recently moved to Florida.
How are you liking the move so far?
I like it, actually, a lot more than I thought I would.
Are you more of a winter person or a summer person?
Definitely a summer person. I've never really liked the cold or the winter, so I was really excited to move to Florida. But I didn't anticipate how hot it would be. So as much as I thought I'd be super excited to move, I moved in June. So the summer was kind of brutal, but now the winter is definitely more to my liking.
Mm-hmm. So would you say you miss Canada at all?
I mean, I miss parts of Canada.
The weather?
Definitely not.
So before we continue on into our next part of our discussion, what's something big that happened this year?
Well, last year I got married.
Oh yeah, it's 2025, yeah. So Didi got married in 2024 and, she decided to leave all of us and move all the way to Florida.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a couple of questions. Obviously me and Buddy are not married. We're not single. And maybe people listening.
We are not single?
Oh, sorry.
We are single.
We are.
Did I miss something?
No, we are single. But people listening to this, marriage is something that might be a couple of years down the line for them, or it might be, maybe in 1 or 2 years, depending on whoever's listening to this. So we had a couple of questions we wanted to ask you, learn about your experience. So, Buddy, why don't you start off?
Yeah. So regarding your wedding, what was the biggest surprise about getting married? Something you didn't expect?
Well, in terms of the wedding itself, as much as people told me that, no matter how much you prepare, like something's going to go wrong, I was a little overconfident in the sense that I'm like, I've prepared so much and like I've planned it so well to like every last detail that it's not going to happen to me. Like everything's going to go according to plan. But I did have a reality check on the day of where, things you don't even think about to go wrong, they went wrong. And it kind of just taught me to learn to go with the flow. And, it's supposed to be the happiest day of your life. So not letting those little details put a damper on your day. I think that's what I learned.
What are like some of the things?
Oh, well, one of the biggest things on the wedding day itself was the whole shoe thing that,
oh, yeah.
It was a lot more violent than anyone thought it would be. And, things got heated. So then even though I wasn't there, like I heard about it and this was right before I walked down the aisle. So, I obviously felt some type of way, falling behind schedule, things like that, which weren't that major, but in the moment, just because you haven't slept and like everyone is just so tense, it kind of feels like it's a bigger deal than it is in the moment.
Yeah. And for those of you who don't know, in like a traditional Indian wedding, there's is it a tradition? I don't think it's like deeply rooted in like.
It's just like a fun tradition.
That like I was gonna say broom. The bride's side, usually like the sister or like the siblings basically steal the groom's shoes, and then obviously the groomsmen have to kind of prevent that from happening. And yeah, that was basically.
Mm-hmm.
So I know a lot of people look forward to their wedding and stuff, and like it's probably supposed to be like a big day, part of your life. Would you say your wedding was a highlight, or because of the stress and everything like that, it kind of was a little bit eh?
It was definitely a highlight, but I don't know if this is normal to feel, but for the few weeks after the wedding, I found myself focusing so much on everything that went wrong instead of, celebrating that I was married or, celebrating like what went well. That might just be me as a person. Like I tend to focus on just not even the negatives, just like, I planned it like this and it didn't happen. Like I put in so much effort and it didn't pan out the way I wanted it to.
Mhm.
But I think after the first initial weeks, I was able to, like, now I look back and like look at pictures and it's, happy memories versus when it was so fresh. I didn't even like looking at the pictures because I was just thinking about everything that went wrong.
I mean, I don't know if this will help you, but I had a great time. It was a highlight of my 2024,
Yeah.
especially like the dance floor and everything like that. That was very fun.
Mm.
The food was good too, but like for some reason I didn't get to eat much of it, which I kind of regret. But now that you're married and like, settled in Florida, one of the questions we have for you is like, how has your relationship kind of changed since getting married? Is it still the same or if there has been some changes?
It's definitely changed, but not in the ways that I had expected. Usually people say that the first year of your marriage is the hardest one because it's like an adjustment period. But I find that it's been pretty easy. We've just had to learn to, understand each other a little bit better. And going into it, I thought because we've had such a long relationship before we got married, about 3 years, I thought I knew everything there was to know and that it wouldn't be as difficult to adjust. There have been some things that I had to learn and change about myself, and same with him, I'm sure, in order to have a smoother life.
For example, like I think I mentioned a couple of episodes ago, I originally thought if I give myself 3 years to get to know my partner or something, then I get married, I would kind of be ready and I would know all about them. So based on what you're saying, there's still a lot of learning that happens even after you spent all that time.
Yeah, definitely. And it doesn't necessarily mean learning about who they are, but it's just about how your behavior and your habits and your quirks affect them when you're living under the same roof.
Going off on, learning new things, marriage often comes with learning new habits and compromises. So what's one funny or challenging moment that kind of stands out to you?
Or a funny habit or something that you didn't know about their show that after getting married, you're like, okay, this is kind of unique.
Of course, if it's shareable.
I don't know. I mean, I don't mind sharing. I don't know how you'd feel, but I'm going to share anyway. So I didn't know that he was a huge sleep talker.
Oh.
And sleep talking in such a weird way that if I'm still up because he sleeps before I do, so I'd still be scrolling on my phone, and then all of a sudden he starts talking, right? And then he would say something and I'd be like, what did you say? And he replies. We have a whole conversation, but he's sleeping.
So he's almost basically conscious, but not.
Yeah. He knows what I'm saying, but then he doesn't remember it in the morning.
Oh my God.
So earlier on, I definitely had a fun time, messing with him and having conversations. But obviously that's not something I had to adjust to. It was just a funny little quirk I didn't know about him.
If you ever want a recorded promise of his, you could definitely, I don't know, manipulate him in his sleep to say that. That would be a suggestion.
Yeah. Actually, and a funny thing is, he went on a bachelor trip with some of his friends, right? And so they primarily speak in Hindi or Gujarati.
Yeah.
So after he came back from that trip, his sleep talking happened in Hindi.
Oh.
No way.
Not even in English. So I don't know.
Along with obviously going through a marriage and everything, you also had another big change in your life, which was moving to Florida. So that's obviously a big adjustment, moving a different country, moving so far away from friends and family. How did you kind of prepare for that move?
I think I was mentally prepared just because, like I said, we've been dating since 2021. And so I always knew that I was going to move eventually, And in the span of the 3 years that we were dating, I would go pretty frequently to visit, whether it was one of his friends' weddings or baby showers, things like that. So I got to know his friends really well. In 2022, I believe, I went and stayed there for I think 3 months with his parents. So I got to know, the family really well too. So I didn't have a hard time adjusting to the people there. I think it was just more the emptiness or the void I felt because of leaving my family.
Mm-hmm.
But the people there are great. We have a great group of friends. His family's really great. So I didn't really struggle. But I just, the homesickness is what made it a little difficult.
I know, this is something, I personally fear with, moving and everything. We kind of grew up in a pretty big family. We have always been around each other, siblings and everything. We have dinner together. And Darshil obviously is a single child. So, do you kind of miss your home being a little bit more busy,
Lively.
like lively
yeah.
and stuff?
100%. Because, like you said, like in our family, there's always been grandparents and aunts and uncles and cousins and like siblings. There's 4 of us, And then going into a family where it's just literally me, Dershel, and his mom, because his dad doesn't, he lives in a different state because he works in Utah. So he doesn't live with us either. So it's just a family of 3. So like going from a family of 6 to a 3, even though it doesn't seem like that big of a difference in numbers, it definitely feels emptier, and just like you feel the void a lot more when, we're just sitting there in silence. And I'm like, if I was back home, like we'd be doing this, and like my siblings and I would go for a walk every evening, like little things like that I didn't even realize meant so much when I lived here. It like, I thought about it there and it just felt like so much bigger. It was such a big deal, and I feel like I didn't appreciate it as much when I was here doing those things.
Yeah.
Have you adjusted to that change yet, or do you still like find yourself kind of, dealing with that?
Definitely, no, I haven't adjusted. I wouldn't say so. But he does have cousins that he's close to, and so they visit, or we go visit them. They live about 3 hours away. So I feel like in the last 7 or 6 months I've lived there, the weekends that we spend with the cousins or like the extended family have been the highlight. Just because it, like, I feel like, the house is full again and there's people around, more so than just like regular days when it's just the 3 of us.
And I know you also like joint together. You have like a huge friend group as well. Do you want to share about like, how that's also helped maybe a little bit?
Yeah. The friend group is actually one of the first things that made me fall in love with Florida. Even back when, we weren't married and I would visit, I really look forward to like the friend hangouts. He does have a pretty big group of friends, and now almost all of them are married or either like engaged. So we also have like weddings coming up, which I'm excited about. But yeah, having such a close-knit group of friends, I think it helps with the loneliness as well. Just because he's an only child, his friends are like his brothers. Like he's close enough to consider them his brothers, and so they're pretty much like family, which I think has really helped.
Nice. What's been the biggest cultural or lifestyle difference you've noticed from moving from Canada to Florida?
Are the people more fat there?
They definitely are. And you know what? No, I'm not even kidding. Buddy and I were talking about this just yesterday about
the food.
Same foods. Yeah, like the same food, or the Kraft mac and cheese that we eat here. And then when I buy it in Florida, like the ingredients are so different, and there's so many ingredients that I don't even know what it means.
Yeah.
But everything, like more preservatives, more chemicals, even like Fruit Loops, for example, right? Like we get the Fruit Loops here and they're colorful, but it's like a dull yellow or dull pink. Over there, they're like bright, like neon colored. So it's like, obviously it's more appealing to kids because of the colors and stuff, but that means there's more chemicals and things like that. So
obesity is definitely a difference.
Yeah.
But it definitely tastes better, like I'll tell you.
Yeah, food hits.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like, is it worth it? I don't know.
That's true. What else? What are other, cultural lifestyle differences?
Well, going back to the family thing, I think that's something that's the most difficult thing that I've had time adjusting to, just like not having people around. And I don't do well, alone. Especially like another thing is the fact that I'm not working because I don't have my licenses in place yet. Dershel would go to work and then his mom would go to work, and so it's just me at home most of the day. So that's been an adjustment.
What about the people? Like I know Canada is known, like you interact with someone and usually it's like a very nice, amicable conversation. People are, Canadians are known for saying like thank you, please, whatever. Would you say, I don't want to like state any stereotypes and anger any Floridians, but like would you say the people there are different, like just in like day-to-day conversations, interactions?
Somewhat different, but not too much. Like Southern hospitality is still a pretty big thing.
Yeah.
Maybe other parts of America aren't as friendly, but in Florida most of them are. But definitely not as, like we go to a Tim Hortons drive-through here and you're welcomed with such like a chirpy, happy person, even if it's 6 a.m. There it's not as friendly, but they're not rude either.
Yeah. It's just a different culture. Like we're kind of known to be a little bit extra when it comes to the formalities and stuff, but over there people are probably like straightforward.
Yeah. What about the is it alligators? Yeah, right? Are they friendly? Are they mean? Have you interacted with them?
Honestly, I haven't seen any as much as people say. I know that in our neighborhood there is a pond and there are alligators in the pond. I just haven't seen them yet. Hopefully I never have to.
You should learn to wrestle
But
alligator.
the lizards are problematic. I've had 2 in the house
Oh my god.
and all I did was scream. She'll do all the work.
You also experienced your first hurricane this year.
yeah.
Why don't you tell us about that? Like, we don't get hurricanes obviously here. We
Mhm.
get a snow blizzard, but it's probably not the same as a hurricane, obviously. So tell us, like, how did you feel? How everyone was reacting at that time? What happened and everything?
I mean, everyone was definitely freaking out because this was supposed to be a Category 5 hurricane, which hasn't happened in a while. They get hurricanes every year, so it's pretty normal. But this year, or last year's hurricane, was supposed to be the biggest one in over a decade or more. I'm not sure. So everyone was freaking out. It was kind of like COVID, where like grocery stores were emptied out. You know, all the toilet paper rolls were gone. Everyone was kind of bracing themselves for extreme impact. But thankfully for us, not so much for, you know, everyone else, but at the last minute, the hurricane did shift its path, and it didn't hit us directly. It was supposed to hit Tampa Bay directly, which would have impacted us a lot more. And those areas were actually evacuated as well. But then it kind of changed direction. It went a little bit north, and so we weren't impacted as much. But there were, you know, like roof tiles kind of flew off of the roof, and trees fell over in our neighborhood. There was one death in like close to where we live because he was on the road and a tree fell on his car.
Oh,
Damn.
So yeah, it was definitely not as bad as it was predicted, but bad nonetheless.
Mm-hmm.
I know some people, like, obviously, as you mentioned, like, a lot of people were taking, you know, precautions and stuff. I also know, like, you know, Floridians are kind of crazy. Some people, you know, didn't really care. Maybe they were enjoying the hurricane. You want to talk a bit more about that?
Yeah, so like the week before the hurricane, or then I guess maybe 3 or 4 days before the hurricane, we were definitely enjoying it because the weather had shifted from like extreme hot and humid to like more cool, and it was nice and windy. So even the day before it was supposed to hit, we went to play pickleball with our friends just because the weather was so nice.
Okay.
And usually people have like hurricane parties, which is they all gather at someone's house and like do a little like sleepover slumber party, which was planned. And the crazy thing is, the hurricane party that was planned was, we live about 45 minutes away from Tampa Bay, so it wasn't going to hit us directly, but the people whose house we were supposed to go to for the hurricane party was in Tampa Bay, so we were kind of going towards the hurricane.
Very smart.
What a good idea.
We didn't end up going at the last minute just because, you know, my mother-in-law was at home, and like I said, Dershel's dad doesn't work in Tampa, and so we didn't want to leave her alone. So we ended up not going just because of that. But
Good
if
call.
that wasn't the case, we would have gone, which I know is a little stupid, but Floridians are stupid.
I hope you know that you're kind of going back after the winter break to Florida, so you might not want to ruin your relationships. But anyways, you've gone through a lot of big changes, and all of these changes kind of lead to like personal growth. What have you learned about yourself after going through these changes and over this last volatile year?
I think one of the most important things that I've learned about myself is that no matter how old you are or how set in your ways you are, you're capable of change. And I say that because, you know, a lot of times as you get older, like I'm, you know, nearing the end of my 20s, about to go into my 30s, and a lot of people my age tend to say, you know, I'm set in my ways, or like, you know, this is who I am, like I can't really change because I've been living like this with these habits for 29 years. But in the last 7 months since I've been married, I've, you know, been able to make certain changes which are obviously like positive changes. You know, I've been able to improve myself as a person simply because it's not just me dealing with my immediate family. Some of the habits or quirks that, you know, other people, that might bother other people, which I got away with here because, you know, we're a family and like you guys are going to accept me and love me unconditionally, which may not be the case, you know, when you get married into a different family. So Darshil and I talk about this a lot because both of us have had to make some changes to adjust to each other's likings. And I feel like in our day and age, people tend to think that's a bad thing. Like, why would I change myself for someone else? You know, like, you have to like me for who I am or accept me for who I am. But making these changes isn't just for other people. Like, it's also for myself, because I know that, you know, some of the habits I had weren't the best, but I never really made it a point to change because I never had to.
Yeah.
But, you know, in being married for the last 7 months, I feel like not even that like someone made me or told me to change, but I just saw the way it was affecting our relationship, so I wanted to. Like, it came kind of like there was some intrinsic motivation that wanted me.
It came from a place of love, you would say.
Yeah.
Right? And you wanted to change because you care about Darshil, you care about how he feels and everything. It's not like he forced you or anything like that.
Exactly.
Nice. So, if you could go back and give yourself advice to your pre-marriage self, what exactly would that be?
Or even if you know someone that's about to get married or something like that, what are some tips or what are some advice you would kind of give them?
Going back to the whole like planning a wedding thing, I think the most important thing that I wish I had remembered is, again, like, no matter how much you prep or no matter how much you plan, not everything is going to go exactly according to the way you wanted. But, you know, focusing on the purpose behind the day. You know, it's not just celebration. It's not just the planning, like the minute-to-minute planning that you do. It's about marrying someone you really care about and starting a life together. So focusing on that is going to help you enjoy the day a little bit more instead of focusing on the details. And in terms of, you know, actually like getting married and starting a life with someone, I think the advice that I would give is going into a marriage with a positive mindset. Because I don't know if everyone can relate, but a lot of times newly married people, and I experience this because a lot of our friends are, you know, newly married, and when we get together, I feel like a lot of our energy and conversation revolves around negative aspects of marriage. You know, for example, like problems with in-laws or even husbands. Like, when I get together with my friends, we're always complaining about like, oh, my husband doesn't do this and my husband doesn't help around the house and he doesn't do this. But marriage is such a beautiful thing, you know, like two people are getting together and starting their own family and their own life together. And it's easy to kind of get swept away in how hard it is, but going into it with the mindset that like, this is my new life and I want to cherish every moment of it, and, you know, just try to keep a positive mindset.
Any other advice you might have for someone who is going through similar changes like you, that they might have to leave their home, how to deal with that, or if they have to leave like their siblings and kind of go all the way to Florida, for example, like big changes like that? Any advice or any tips you might have?
I think something that I actually haven't even gotten too good at it, but learning to keep in touch with your friends and your family, because like I said, like Darshil has a great friend group, but you know, at the beginning, I actually used to joke with him, and like he'd be like, oh, do you want to go hang out with our friends? And I'm like, they're your friends. They're just my obligatory friends, you know, like I had no choice in picking them. They're just the people that were handed to me that like, here, this is your new friend group. I still have my friends, people I grew up with. But if you're not too good at keeping in touch and, you know, making the occasional phone call or checking in on a regular basis, you're going to lose that connection. And it's just so unfortunate if that happens, especially because I'm not really good at, you know, doing phone calls. And I try to text here and there, but, you know, like I just feel so disconnected from the people I grew up with. And even siblings, because we're not the best at, you know.
If you're bad, I'm even worse at it.
Yeah. I feel like Jalp is definitely really good at, you know, calling almost daily, catching up, keeping up with, you know, what's going on in my life and sharing what's going on in his. But with you and Nan, I feel like, you know, I see you guys when I come here and we catch up, and then that's it. Like, I'll see you next time I come. So yeah, keeping in touch and prioritizing the connection you guys had with your old home and your old friends when you move into your new home.
Nice. All right. Enough about wedding and moving and stuff. Obviously, 2024 was a year that was big for you, big for all of us because of your marriage. But aside from the wedding itself, can you share something you've done in 2024 that you're most proud of? And on top of that, what are you most looking forward to in this next chapter of your life? Again, not exactly wedding life. It could just be, 2025, 2026, etc.
Well, something that I'm really proud of for doing in 2024 is the 8K run that we did in April. Yeah. Because obviously, as you guys know, I'm not a runner, and I have the stamina of a snail.
Okay.
I would say snails are persistent. They don't give up.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
but they probably get tired and take occasional breaks. I don't know. Anyway,
I get your point.
I'm definitely not a runner, and starting with the 8K, not even starting with a 5K was definitely pushing it for me, and it was mostly because you guys made me. But
we didn't make you.
I mean,
at the end of the day, you did it yourself.
Yeah, but you forced me to sign up. And remember when I wanted to pay extra to make it refundable or cancel it, and you guys are like, no, because then you will cancel it. So you guys definitely motivated me, which is not a bad thing. Yeah, I think that's something I'm really proud of. And even though I didn't enjoy it, I wish, as much as I wish I enjoyed running and got the runner's high and things like that, it definitely motivated me to take care of my health and build up my stamina. So I started taking care of my health. I started going to the gym on a regular basis. Yeah, I think that's what I'm proud of. For this upcoming year, I kind of going hand in hand with self-care and things like that. One of my goals is to read more, because I used to be an avid reader, and then now I feel like I don't have the attention span to, focus on a book. But my goal is to read 12 books in 12 months. So just one book a month. I feel like I can do it, hopefully. I have finished my book for January.
Let's go.
Telling you guys earlier. But yeah, that's something that I want to do. Another big goal, which is maybe, but Dershel and I are hoping to buy our first home this year, or by the end of the year. If not, then early next year. Also, going back to the fact that I haven't worked in 6 months, which is driving me a little bit crazy. Hopefully, all my licenses and certifications go through soon and I'm able to start working again, because I really do miss being in the classroom and teaching.
Mm-hmm. Will we expect you to make me an uncle?
And me an aunt.
Because we really want that.
No comment?
No comment.
Okay.
Because you guys are acting like the aunties at all the weddings that ask me this.
Because I relate to the aunties. But yeah, that's our sister, guys. Thank you for coming on our episode.
Not like you had a choice.
I hope you had fun.
I did have fun. I always enjoy talking.
Yeah, and
it's a little nerve-wracking doing it, so formally in front of a microphone, but
yeah, we tried our best to make it as informal as possible, but we really love when you share what you have gone through with us, and we really appreciate those advice as well, your personal experience. It helps us a lot. So we thought obviously that people listening could also benefit from that. And a lot of people who are listening to this are of the age of they're going to get married in a couple of years, or they're about to get married. So listening from your experiences, I hope you guys find something that you can relate with and you can learn from as well. Really appreciate you sharing how you handled all these changes with grace. So Didi, your story kind of reminds us how life's biggest transitions often teach us the most about ourselves.
Absolutely. It's been amazing to hear about your journey and see how you've adapted and grown.
If you had to describe this past year in one word, what would it be?
And why would it be that word?
Can I choose 2 words?
We'll allow it.
Sure.
I'd say growth and positivity. Mostly, because of all the things we talked about, but I've learned that in order to be happy in life, you have to be positive. Every situation you're in, or every major milestone that you cross, there's going to be 2 ways of looking at it. Things are going to go right, things are going to go wrong. And growth, because I feel like I've grown as a person and as a wife, and even as a sister and a daughter and a daughter-in-law. Like, all the roles that I play, I feel like I've grown at least a little bit.
That's all for today's episode of The Ordinary. Stay tuned for next week. By the way, guys, we drop episodes every Monday at 8 a.m. And as always, don't forget to follow, rate, and share our podcast. Thanks for listening.